Coming up on the final pay-per-view of 2020, a turbulent year for every single sports organization in the world. We've got UFC 256 this weekend. Dana, 2020, like I mentioned, very turbulent for different sports promotions. If people were to look back at the UFC in 2020, what do you think it will be most remembered for?
God, that's a tough one. For us personally, I mean, it's the best year we've ever had. Crazy to say that, but we broke just about every record we have except for the live gate record, obviously. And but it was a very challenging year for us, to pull all this stuff off. It was without a doubt the hardest year of my career.
It was a never back down attitude. So when you guys went forward doing COVID testing and really putting in the medical protocol, I'm just curious, how many COVID tests have been done to this date so far?
Oh, God, I actually have that number here. Hold on, I'll tell you in a second. But we've spent $17 million on COVID testing this year. And we did, think about this. So 1,470 UFC athletes, cornermen, and staff were transported. 1,700 commercial flights, 34 charter flights. We had, everybody keeps talking about, how difficult it is for some of these other sports because of the teams and all this stuff. We had 164 athletes from 40 different countries that competed this year. And by the way, they were talking about how great it was that the NBA players had an 8.8%, positivity rate. Ours was 0.8%.
Wow, so of all the tests, 0.8% positivity rate. So what exactly was the number in terms of how many tests in general have been done? Do you have that number?
Yeah, I do have that number. Did I not just say it? I didn't, did I? COVID tests to date, 26,300.
Wow, it's an unbelievable number. 26,000. So in terms of this year, you talk about breaking records. With the ratings this year, how do they hold up against previous years?
Yeah, no. So during the pandemic, we were up 30% on ESPN. Then as soon as it starts to average out, we're up 18, 20% this year.
And you've talked about social engagement. How much more has it been this year? Because you talked about Joaquin Buckley's highlight reel KO and all of that. I imagine it's probably because there are more people also sitting at home using social media. I imagine that the numbers are quite a bit higher.
Yeah, our social media growth was massive this year. We surpassed 10 million followers on YouTube, earning us diamond play status, and second only to the NBA among sports organizations worldwide. Our Instagram growth in the U.S. went up 38.17%. We're number 2 only to the NBA again. Second most video views on Instagram compared to all other U.S.-based sports, number 2 to the NBA. And the Joaquin Buckley thing was massive. Broke all kinds of records.
Now, these questions you don't necessarily need to answer. I don't know if you're allowed to disclose this information, but in terms of revenue this year, what was revenue like? And what is the current valuation of the UFC, the market valuation?
Well, we broke the record. We broke every record we had except for live gate. I mean, consumer products was up 166% this year. And the list just goes on and on. We killed it this year. It was an amazing year for us.
So when you sold the UFC, or I guess Endeavor bought the UFC in 2016, it was $4+ billion. What do you think it's worth now? Has anybody brought that up with you? Any economists within the promotion?
Probably 9 or 10.
Wow, that's impressive. And people had scoffed at the $4 billion number, but it seems like things just continue to move along in a positive direction. You mentioned revenue up again, especially in a year like this when everybody's kind of up against it. I'm sure a lot of sports team owners are probably up against it.
People have been scoffing at me for 20 years. Keep scoffing.
You enjoy the scoffing. 2020,
I love the scoffing.
2021, next year. What's the one fight you have to see in 2021? Dana White has to see just one.
Listen, as a fan, it's impossible for me not to love John Jones versus Israel Adesanya. I don't know if that's going to happen. I know John is moving to heavyweight. and Adesanya's a light heavyweight, but we'll see what happens.
Also, the middleweight champion of the world, but I guess he is moving up to light heavyweight. That's at least what the rumors have been. 4 pay-per-views this year, 4 title fights this year for Davis and Figueiredo. Back-to-back pay-per-views, headlining, 255, 256. If he gets a win this weekend, is he the consensus fighter of the year in your opinion? I know he missed weight for that first title fight, which caused some problems in terms of the flyweight division, but do you consider him to be the fighter of the year if he wins this weekend?
Yeah. It'd be tough for him not to be. Yes.
Now, the co-main event this weekend, Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. I love this fight. I told you before we started, this is the fight I'm second most looking forward to this year, behind Gaethje versus Khabib. But with this fight, I know that there's one change you can make that I think a lot of people would like. I know I would like. It's not a commission thing. It's something that the UFC can do. 5-round co-main events for non-title fights on pay-per-views. Can we make that happen?
I mean, we're sitting here. We're in the matchmaking room right now. I'd be lying if I didn't say we've talked about it. You know, there's fights. Listen, me, Sean, Mick, and Hunter are fight geeks too. We love it as much as the fans do. It's just tough. It's tough to pull off a co-main event with 5 rounds, but we have definitely talked about it.
But on pay-per-view events, if you've got 2 title fights, they're both 5 rounds, so it's not a timing issue.
Yeah, but the reality is, if you look at this card tonight, I mean, or Saturday night, we got 5 really good fights on the main card. You're making somebody lose a slot on either ESPN or on pay-per-view if you do 2 5-round co-main and main events.
I want to move on to what a lot of people are saying is now the Khabib versus Tony of the featherweight division. Zabit Magomedsharipov against Yair Rodriguez. You guys have to be frustrated with Yair Rodriguez. Recently got a 6-month suspension for his whereabouts violations. What's going on with Yair Rodriguez? Because I know that it's been a rocky road between the promotion and Yair Rodriguez in terms of making this fight with Zabit happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's been a rocky road between us. You know, the kid's been very flaky. You know, we've had issues with him, and now here we are. You know, he gets his whereabouts. You know, I don't even know what to tell you.
Are you moving on from that fight, Zabit versus Yair? There's no title implications, there's no title on the line or anything along those lines. You can let that ship sail. Yeah. It would be a great fight, but it seems like it keeps falling apart, and I feel bad watching Zabit on the shelf.
You probably know better than me how long his suspension is. I don't know how long
6 months. Is. I think it expires in March.
So yeah, it would be a good idea to move on.
Do you have anything in mind for Zabit right now? I know he's been itching to fight.
No, not off the top of my head.
And you explained why Yoel Romero was released this past weekend. What happened with Anthony Johnson? I think a lot of people were excited to see how he would do in a division free of John Jones now, the light heavyweight division. Always an exciting fighter, you know, under the age of 40. Why allow Anthony Johnson to walk and go to the competition?
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, first of all, I have a good relationship with Anthony Johnson. I like him very much. He was under contract with us. I would have loved to have seen him compete here. I don't know. Use your imagination.
Well, fill me in here. What happened? I mean, something must have happened if you have a good relationship with him and
I have a great relationship with him. I love the kid.
So then what was the impetus for letting him go? I mean, apparently it was a mutually agreed upon situation.
Yeah. Because it was probably in his best interest.
Why was it in his best interest? Is it a financial thing?
Ask him.
All right, I'll try to line that up.
That's his business. If he wants to talk about it, it's his business.
You talked about, again, this past weekend, about cutting the roster down a little bit, whittling it down, looking at about 60 cuts. When you look at that and the idea that a lot of these decent name fighters with a good name, are going to go to competing promotions, have you stopped worrying about competing promotions? Are you worrying just about the UFC now and just moving this train along because the competition have never really caught up?
When was I worried about other people? Ever.
That's understandable.
When was I ever worried about anybody else?
But do you follow the other promotions?
New?
Do you watch Bellator? Do you watch?
Who should I be worried about right now?
I'm not saying you should be worried, but I'm just.
10 years ago.
Do you watch any of these other promotions? Do you watch Bellator?
No, I don't.
So when someone like Michael Chandler becomes a free agent, how does he end up in the UFC?
Because the matchmakers tell me he's good. They like him or they don't like him.
So you rely on them because they watch. I mean, they have to watch all the cards. They're scouting all these fighters.
Yeah, they watch tons of fights from all over the world. It's not about one or two promotions. Really, if you look at Bellator, there's not much to be interested in. There's much better promotions all over the world that are actually dealing in up and coming talent. There's lots of great shows to watch all over the world. All you guys talk about are two, when there are plenty of other places where actually, if you look at the business that I'm in, it's like everybody keeps asking me about these fights that are going on, whether it's the YouTube kids or these other kids and all this other stuff. There's a market for that. People want to see that. People are going to make money. There's a market for that. And it's the same thing with Bellator and those places. That's not what I do. I'm looking for the up and coming best fighters in the world. And I'm looking for people that I believe could possibly someday be world champions. Those are the people we're looking for.
So if a fighter you think is past their prime, is there a good chance that they're not going to be on the roster next year?
Has that not been the case in the past? Is this all something new? This is what we've been doing for 20 years.
To start next year, January 16th, 20th, and 23rd are the reported dates for the first 3 events of the year. Nothing's been reported yet, but is Fight Island the goal? Is the goal to have it there?
Yeah.
And I know you've talked about having a crowd, having beach parties. Is there any movement on that? Like, what kind of paperwork needs to be done in order to make that happen?
Yeah, we're still looking at that stuff. You know, in a perfect world, if I can pull this thing off, you know, we go to Fight Island again, and it's like an international fight week. We're doing all kinds of cool things that week for people to fly in, hang out, party, watch fights, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday.
So it's like a bubble of normalcy. You'll get to escape from what's going on right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you go to Fight Island, it's an escape from here anyway. I mean, it's a whole nother level out there. All the restaurants that are open and available to us, and it's actually a really cool experience.
So would the goal be to build a bubble that would involve the fans so that everybody's kind of bubbled together?
No, it wouldn't be to build a bubble with the fans. What we would do is we would try to figure out a way where we could test everybody that was going to come to the event.
So they could stay outside of the parameters of the arena, but they...
Yeah, Abu Dhabi's open. Abu Dhabi tests everybody who lives there. Everybody who is in that country is tested. It's insanity.
You know, nothing's been announced for the main event on the 20th, but if I guess it, will you tell me that I'm right?
On the 20th? Yeah.
My guess is that you're going to have Khamzat Chimaev versus Leon Edwards on the 20th. It would make a lot of sense.
Good guess.
So that's what's in the works for that particular main event?
Yes. See,
Dana, you say that what we know about the business and what you tell us about the business. I just know it. I knew that was going to be the main event. I had no prior insight. It was just gut.
That's not knowing about the business. That's guessing where we moved that fight after he tested positive for COVID.
That's fair enough. And I've got another guess for you. On the pay-per-view card, you got McGregor and Poirier headlining it. Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. I know Gaethje said this week he wants to get a win before he fights for the title again. Is that also something that you're looking at?
Could be.
That's a can't-miss fight. I mean, I think that if you put those two in the case together, it's a formula for 100% success. Is that fair? Maybe 99% if there's some sort of freak injury?
Yeah. Listen, if we're going to be out on Fight Island and you got a massive fight, you know, with McGregor, you have to have a backup.
Last weekend, we saw on fight day 3 different fights fall off the card. Is there anything that's being done to tighten the bubble or to try to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen? I know next weekend you've got 16, 17 fights on the card. You guys are locked and loaded for that one. But what kind of protocols are being made to try to avoid that kind of thing from happening?
Yeah, well, I just told you earlier, we have the lowest out of all of sports. When I say lowest, it's not even in the same universe. So our system is pretty dialed in, but you know, you're dealing with a virus here. So these things are going to happen.
You look at this Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul fight right now. Do you think that this is how boxing is going to go? Like, do you think that boxing is going to have, there are going to be more fans of this form of boxing than actual boxing? Like, if you put on these weird fights, will that do better than, say, an Errol Spence versus Bud Crawford fight? Is that the way that sport's going, in your opinion?
Scary and sad, but probably true, yeah.
And why do you think that's the case? Like, why do you think there's more of an appetite for that than real You're a boxing purist. You love boxing. Why is that the case?
The thing has just been in such a spiral nosedive for so long. And what they haven't done is they haven't got any of that younger generation, any of that younger crowd. But, it'd be crazy to say that these type of fights haven't been popular anyway. I mean, we were just talking the other day about the Tanya Harding fight when she fought, and these celebrity fights that they were doing. I think people are always going to be interested in that type of stuff.
I guess you call them freak show fights, but there was a rumor out of Quebec that you were looking at finally launching Zuffa Boxing with Claressa Shields' headlining event. Claressa has since signed with the PFL. Were you guys in negotiations with Claressa Shields, and is Zuffa Boxing kind of on hold again for now?
Never did I say that I was doing anything, but I've been looking and kicking the tires of boxing, for the last couple of years. And the reason you've never seen me do anything is because that's how screwed up and broken it is. That's what a mess it is. Yeah, I'm not doing anything anytime soon.
Is it just kind of too late to get into boxing because of all these weird governing bodies and all the WBC, WBA belts and all these different promotions having their hand in the cookie jar? Is it kind of just too late to be able to do it successfully, in your opinion?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, maybe. It might be. It's going to require so much time, money, and the whole thing needs to be rebuilt and restructured. There's always going to be fights that'll pop up that'll make money, But, when you're in a situation where, a fight like this Mayweather fight does more buys than Fury versus Wilder or, some of these legitimate big fights, it's pretty scary.
All right, well, we know where to find the best MMA. It's this Saturday night, UFC 256. Deiveson Figueiredo looks for his second title defense in 21 days against Brandon Moreno, who's also fighting for the second time in 21 days. A real warrior, Moreno. That's going to be a really fun fight. Thanks for your time, Dana. I always appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Thank you.